Lily was a small girl, even for her age. She had big, bright eyes that seemed to notice everything, even the tiny ants marching across the sidewalk. But Lily didn't talk much. Instead, she showed the world what she saw through her drawings. Her favorite thing to do was sit at her little table by the window, crayons scattered around her like colorful jewels. She'd hum quietly, her tongue peeking out from the corner of her mouth as she concentrated on making the perfect sunshine yellow or the deepest ocean blue. To Lily, the world was a canvas, and her crayons were magic wands. Her drawings weren't always easy to understand. Sometimes they were just swirling colors and wiggly lines. But if you looked closely, you could always find something special. A hidden flower in the grass, a bird soaring through the sky, or maybe even a friendly monster hiding under the bed. She loved drawing her family, her mom with her always smiling face, her dad with his silly jokes, and her fluffy cat, Mr. Whiskers, who loved to nap in sunbeams. She drew the trees in her backyard, the clouds that drifted by, and the stars that twinkled at night. Lily saw the world with a special kind of innocence. Everything was bright and new, full of wonder and possibility. She didn't understand all the grown-up worries or the things that made people sad. She just knew that drawing made her happy, and she hoped her pictures made other people happy too. Her world was safe and cozy, filled with love and crayons, unaware of the darkness that was about to touch her small town. She was just Lily, a quiet, observant child, and her drawings were her way of sharing her heart with the world. The quiet charm of Willow Creek was suddenly shattered. Mrs. Gable, the friendly baker who always gave extra cookies to children, had vanished. One morning, her bakery was open, the oven still warm, but Mrs. Gable was nowhere to be found. Her apron lay discarded on the counter, and her rolling pin was strangely out of place. The news spread through Willow Creek like a chilling wind. Doors that were once left unlocked were now bolted shut. Children were kept indoors, and parents walked them to school, their faces etched with worry. The annual town picnic, usually a joyful celebration, was cancelled. Sheriff Miller, a kind, grandfatherly figure, tried to reassure everyone, but even his voice held a tremor of concern. "We're doing everything we can," he said, his brow furrowed. "We'll find Mrs. Gable." But days turned into weeks, and Mrs. Gable remained missing. Whispers turned into rumors, and fear grew with each passing sunset. People started suspecting each other. Old grudges resurfaced, and friendships frayed. The close-knit community of Willow Creek was slowly unraveling, replaced by suspicion and anxiety. Lily, with her innocent eyes, sensed the change. The adults around her were quieter, their smiles strained. The playful chatter in the park was replaced by hushed conversations. Even Mr. Whiskers seemed more skittish, hiding under the furniture instead of basking in the sunbeams. She didn't understand what had happened to Mrs. Gable, but she knew something was terribly wrong. The darkness that had crept into Willow Creek had cast a shadow even over Lily's bright, colorful world. It was a shadow that she, in her own innocent way, would soon try to chase away. Lily's crayons became her refuge. As the adults whispered and worried, she retreated to her little table, seeking solace in her art. But her drawings were changing. Gone were the sunny skies and smiling faces. Now, her pictures were filled with dark, swirling colors and jagged lines. She drew more often, sometimes for hours, her small hand gripping the crayons tightly. One afternoon, she showed her parents a new drawing. It was a large piece of paper covered in what looked like random scribbles. Black, red, and purple lines crisscrossed the page, forming an indecipherable mess. "What is it, sweetie?" her mom asked gently, trying to decipher the image. Lily just shrugged and pointed to the center of the drawing. "Just drawing," she mumbled, her voice barely audible. Her parents exchanged worried glances. Lily's drawings were usually so cheerful and easy to understand. This new picture was unsettling, a reflection of the fear that had gripped their town. They tried to see something familiar in the chaos of lines, a hidden flower or a friendly animal, but they couldn't find anything. It just looked like scribbles, the random markings of a child struggling to express something she couldn't put into words. They didn't want to discourage her creativity, but they also couldn't ignore the disturbing nature of her recent artwork. Her dad gently suggested, maybe you could draw something happy tomorrow, like Mr. Whiskers chasing a butterfly. Lily just nodded and took the drawing back, clutching it to her chest. To her, it wasn't just scribbles. It was something more, something she couldn't explain, a glimpse of something she had seen. Something that lingered in her mind, refusing to be forgotten. The image was a jumbled mess of colors, but hidden within those chaotic lines was a detail that would soon unravel the mystery that had gripped Willow Creek. Detective Harding arrived in Willow Creek with a weariness that seemed to cling to him like the scent of stale coffee. He was a seasoned investigator, his face etched with the lines of countless sleepless nights and unsolved cases. He'd seen the best and worst of humanity, and the weight of it all bore down on him. He wasn't from Willow Creek, he was big city police, called in when Sheriff Miller admitted he was out of his depth. The Gable case was different. It wasn't just another crime, it was a gaping wound in the heart of a small town. Harding felt the responsibility acutely. He knew that the people of Willow Creek were relying on him to bring Mrs. Gable home and restore their sense of security. He set up his temporary office in a small room at the back of the sheriff's station, surrounded by stacks of files and maps. He spent hours poring over witness statements, crime scene photos, and background checks, searching for any clue that might lead him to Mrs. Gable. Harding was a methodical man, a stickler for details. He believed that every case, no matter how complex, could be solved with enough patience and perseverance. He knew that the answer was out there, hidden somewhere in the tangled web of evidence. Despite his weariness, Harding was determined to find Mrs. Gable. He had a reputation for solving even the most difficult cases, and he wasn't about to let Willow Creek down. He felt a connection to this small town, a sense of obligation to protect its innocent residents from the darkness that had invaded their lives. He had a gut feeling, that this case was far from over, and that the key to solving it might be found in the most unexpected of places. He just didn't know that the key was a little girl and her crayons. Hoping to find any eyewitnesses, Detective Harding visited Willow Creek Elementary School. He spoke to the teachers, asking if any of the children had mentioned seeing anything unusual around the time of Mrs. Gable's disappearance. He knew it was a long shot, but sometimes children notice things that adults overlooked. He walked through the brightly colored hallways, lined with artwork and student projects. The atmosphere was subdued, a stark contrast to the usual cheerful chaos of a school. Even the children seemed quieter, their faces reflecting the anxiety of the adults around them. As he spoke with Mrs. Davison, Lily's teacher, in the small, cluttered teacher's lounge, Harding's gaze drifted towards the refrigerator. It was covered in a colorful collage of drawings and paintings, a testament to the children's creativity. Among the vibrant landscapes and whimsical creatures, one drawing stood out. It was a chaotic mess of dark lines and swirling colors, unlike the other cheerful artwork. "That's Lily's," Mrs. Davison said, noticing Harding's interest. "She's a sweet girl, very quiet. She's been drawing a lot lately, but her pictures have been a bit different." Harding stepped closer to the refrigerator, examining the drawing more closely. It was just scribbles, really, the kind of random markings a child might make when they're bored or frustrated. But something about it caught his eye. There was a certain intensity to the lines, a sense of urgency that he couldn't quite explain. He made a mental note to ask Lily's parents about the drawing. It probably wasn't anything, just the product of a child's imagination. But in a case like this, Harding knew that every detail, no matter how small, was worth investigating. He had a feeling that Lily's scribbles might be more significant than they appeared. Back at the station, Harding tried to focus on the tangible evidence, the missing person report, the crime scene photos, the witness statements. He pushed Lily's drawing to the back of his mind. It was just a child's scribble, he told himself, a meaningless jumble of lines and colors. He had more important things to worry about. But the image kept resurfacing in his thoughts. The intensity of the colors, the frantic energy of the lines, it bothered him more than he wanted to admit. He'd seen a lot of disturbing things in his career, but there was something about that drawing that felt different. He tried to rationalize it. Maybe the girl was just upset about Mrs. Gable's disappearance, and her drawing was a reflection of her anxiety. Maybe it was just a coincidence. But Harding had learned to trust his instincts, and his instincts were telling him that there was something more to this drawing than met the eye. He pulled out his phone and took a quick photo of the drawing on the refrigerator. Just in case, he muttered to himself. He knew it seemed ridiculous, treating a child's drawing like a piece of evidence. But he couldn't shake the nagging sense of unease that it provoked. He went back to reviewing the files, but his mind kept wandering back to Lily's drawing. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was missing something, that the answer to the Gable case was hidden somewhere in those chaotic lines. It was a long shot, he knew, but he couldn't afford to ignore any possibility, no matter how unlikely. The photograph sat in his phone, a silent reminder of the innocent eyes that might have unknowingly witnessed something terrible. The weight of the case, and the unsettling image, kept him awake long into the night. The next day, Detective Harding found himself staring at the photo of Lily's drawing again. He'd printed it out, the chaotic scribbles now taking up a full sheet of paper. He spread out the crime scene photos of Mrs. Gable's bakery on his desk, the image of Lily's drawing looming above them. He felt foolish, comparing a child's artwork to professional crime scene photography, but he couldn't shake the feeling that there was a connection. He started looking for patterns, for anything that might connect the drawing to the crime scene. He squinted, tilting his head, trying to see the drawing from a different perspective. He compared the colors in the drawing to the colors in the bakery, the sunshine yellow of the walls, the warm brown of the wooden counters, the deep red of Mrs. Gable's favorite apron. Then he pulled out the witness statements. He reread each one carefully, searching for any detail that might resonate with the drawing. He looked for descriptions of the suspect, the clothes they were wearing, the car they were driving, anything that might spark a connection. He found nothing. The drawing remained a chaotic mess, a jumble of lines and colors that seemed to defy interpretation. Frustration gnawed at him. He was wasting his time, chasing a ghost, trying to find meaning in something that was probably meaningless. But just as he was about to give up, he noticed something. A small, almost imperceptible detail hidden within the swirling lines. A shape, a suggestion of something familiar. He leaned closer, his heart quickening. It was faint, almost invisible, but it was there. A shape that, with a little imagination, could be interpreted as an arm. And on that arm, a dark, indistinct marking. Could it be a tattoo? The thought sent a jolt of adrenaline through him. He had to look closer. This scribble, this chaotic mess, might be the key to everything. Harding, his eyes strained from staring at the drawing for hours, decided to get a fresh perspective. Maria, he called out to a young officer who was diligently working at her desk. Take a look at this. Tell me what you see. Maria, eager to prove herself, approached Harding's desk with a notepad and pen. She studied the drawing, her brow furrowing in concentration. At first, she saw only a chaotic jumble of lines and colors, much like Harding had initially. It looks like scribbles, detective, she said hesitantly. Look closer, Harding urged, pointing to the area where he thought he saw the arm. Try to see past the chaos. Maria squinted, tilting her head from side to side. After a few moments, her eyes widened. Wait a minute, she said, pointing to a cluster of dark lines. Is that an arm? Harding's heart skipped a beat. What else do you see? Maria leaned closer, tracing the lines with her finger. There's something on the arm, she said, her voice barely a whisper. It looks like a tattoo. A really crude one, like someone drew it with a pen. Harding felt a surge of adrenaline. He wasn't imagining things. Someone else saw it too. Describe it, he said, his voice tight with anticipation. Maria hesitated. It's hard to tell, she said. It's just a bunch of dark lines, but it looks like, maybe a dragon. Or some kind of animal with wings. Harding nodded slowly. A dragon. An animal with wings. It wasn't much, but it was something. It was a detail that could potentially crack the case wide open. He finally had something concrete to work with, something to connect Lily's drawing to the real world. And he had Maria to thank for it. "Good eye, Maria," he said, a rare smile gracing his lips. "You just might have solved this case." The word tattoo hung in the air, sparking a memory in Harding's mind. He raced back to his desk, frantically flipping through the stack of witness statements. He remembered something, a vague detail, a fleeting mention that he had almost dismissed as irrelevant. He found it buried deep within the notes from an interview with Mr. Peterson, the elderly man who lived across the street from Mrs. Gable's bakery. Mr. Peterson had mentioned seeing a man lurking near the bakery on the morning of her disappearance. He couldn't provide a clear description, but he had said something about the man's arm. Harding reread the relevant passage. "I couldn't see his face too well, it was early, still kinda dark. But I remember he had something on his arm, a mark, maybe. I couldn't tell what it was, but it looked like one of those tattoos, I think. But it was all blurry, couldn't make out the picture." Harding slammed his fist on the desk. A tattoo. He had it right there all along, a crucial piece of information that he had overlooked. Mr. Peterson hadn't been able to describe the tattoo, but he had confirmed its existence. And now, Lily's drawing, with its crude depiction of an arm and a winged creature, suddenly made sense. The blurry tattoo that Mr. Peterson couldn't quite describe, the chaotic lines in Lily's drawing that Maria had identified as a winged creature, it all fit together. It was a long shot, a tenuous connection, but it was the best lead they had. Harding felt a surge of energy, a renewed sense of purpose. He finally had a direction, a path to follow. He knew it wouldn't be easy, finding a suspect based on such a vague description of a tattoo. But he was determined to find the man with the winged creature on his arm, the man who had been lurking near Mrs. Gable's bakery on the morning she disappeared. He owed it to Mrs. Gable, to the people of Willow Creek, and to the little girl whose drawing had unknowingly revealed the truth. Harding and Maria spent the next few days immersed in a new phase of the investigation, the hunt for the tattoo. They started by compiling a list of all known associates of Mrs. Gable, people who had worked with her, frequented her bakery, or had any connection to her life. Then, they cross-referenced that list with individuals who had a criminal record in Willow Creek and the surrounding counties. It was a tedious process, involving countless hours of searching through databases, reviewing old police reports, and interviewing potential witnesses. They asked about tattoos, specifically arm tattoos, and even more specifically, tattoos that resembled a dragon or a winged creature. Most people were cooperative, but many were skeptical. The idea that a child's drawing could lead them to a killer seemed far-fetched. They interviewed several people with arm tattoos, but none of them matched the description. Some had elaborate, professionally done tattoos of dragons or eagles, but none of them resembled the crude, almost childlike drawing in Lily's picture. Others had faded, amateurish tattoos that were completely unrelated. Harding refused to give up. He knew they were on the right track. He could feel it in his gut. He expanded the search, looking beyond Mrs. Gable's immediate circle, focusing on individuals with a history of violence or petty crime. He reasoned that someone with a criminal record was more likely to be involved in Mrs. Gable's disappearance. The list grew longer, the interviews more frequent, but the elusive tattoo remained just out of reach. Harding felt the pressure mounting. The people of Willow Creek were growing impatient, their hope dwindling with each passing day. He knew he had to find the man with the winged creature on his arm, and he had to find him soon. He hoped that Lily's innocent drawing would ultimately lead them to justice. The tattoo hunt turned into a frustrating maze of dead ends. Each interview led to another, each potential suspect proved to be a false alarm. Harding felt the weight of the unsolved case pressing down on him, the faces of the worried townspeople haunting his dreams. The initial surge of hope had dwindled, replaced by a gnawing sense of despair. He started second-guessing himself. Was he chasing a phantom? Was he putting too much stock in a child's drawing? Maybe the tattoo was just a coincidence, a meaningless detail that had led him down the wrong path. The pressure from Sheriff Miller and the town council was mounting. They needed answers, they needed closure. The longer Mrs. Gable remained missing, the more restless and fearful the community became. Harding could feel their eyes on him, questioning his methods, doubting his abilities. He found himself snapping at Maria, his frustration spilling over onto his junior officer. He knew it wasn't fair, but he couldn't help it. He was tired, he was stressed, and he was running out of ideas. One evening, after another fruitless day of interviews, Harding sat alone in his office, staring at the photo of Lily's drawing. The chaotic scribbles seemed to mock him, the elusive tattoo taunting him from the depths of the paper. He felt like giving up, like admitting defeat. But then he thought of Mrs. Gable, the kind baker who always gave extra cookies to children. He thought of Lily, the quiet, observant girl whose drawing held the key to the mystery. He couldn't let them down. He had to keep going, even if it seemed hopeless. He just needed a new angle, a fresh perspective. And maybe, just maybe, that fresh perspective would come from Lily herself. While Harding wrestled with his frustration, Lily was back at her little table, her crayons clutched tightly in her hand. She hadn't forgotten that mean man she had seen near Mrs. Gable's bakery. The image was still vivid in her mind, a disturbing contrast to the colorful world she usually portrayed in her drawings. This time, instead of scribbling random lines and colors, she focused on one specific detail, the arm. She drew a large, slightly crooked arm, filling the entire page. She carefully outlined the shape, using a dark brown crayon. Then, she turned her attention to the tattoo. It wasn't just a jumble of lines anymore. It was becoming clearer, more defined. She added more details, using black and red crayons to create a more intricate design. It still looked crude, like a child had drawn it, but it was undeniably a winged creature. She added sharp claws, jagged wings, and a fierce, almost menacing expression. When she was finished, she showed the drawing to her parents. They were taken aback. The picture was disturbing, a far cry from the cheerful drawings they were used to. But they couldn't deny that it was also more focused, more deliberate. "What is it, Lily?" her mom asked, her voice filled with concern. Lily pointed to the tattoo. "The man's arm," she said softly. "The mean man." Her parents exchanged worried glances. They knew they couldn't ignore this. Lily was trying to tell them something important. They decided it was time to seek professional help. They needed to understand what Lily had seen, and how it might be connected to Mrs. Gable's disappearance. They made an appointment with a child psychologist, hoping to unravel the mystery hidden within Lily's increasingly detailed drawings. They had no idea that their decision would soon reignite Harding's investigation and bring them closer to the truth. The appointment with Dr. Evans, a kind and gentle child psychologist, was scheduled for the following week. Lily's parents were nervous, unsure of what to expect. They brought along all of Lily's recent drawings, hoping they would provide some insight into her thoughts and feelings. Dr. Evans' office was warm and inviting, filled with colorful toys and books. She greeted Lily and her parents with a warm smile, trying to create a comfortable and safe environment. She spent some time talking to Lily, asking her about her drawings, her favorite colors, and her friends at school. Lily was quiet and reserved, but Dr. Evans was patient and understanding. She didn't push Lily to talk about anything she wasn't comfortable with, instead focusing on building trust and rapport. As Lily played with some building blocks, Dr. Evans spoke with her parents about their concerns. They explained how Lily's drawings had changed since Mrs. Gable's disappearance, becoming darker and more focused on the image of the mean man. They showed Dr. Evans the drawing of the arm with the winged creature tattoo, explaining that Lily had identified it as belonging to the man she had seen near the bakery. Dr. Evans examined the drawing carefully, her expression thoughtful. She recognized the potential significance of the tattoo, the potential link to the ongoing investigation. She knew she had to proceed cautiously, to avoid influencing Lily or planting any ideas in her mind. She assured Lily's parents that she would do everything she could to help Lily process her feelings and understand what she had seen. She also knew that she had a responsibility to share any relevant information with the authorities. She promised to contact Detective Harding, knowing that Lily's drawings, and her innocent perspective, might be the key to unlocking the truth. Harding's phone was about to ring, and his luck was about to change. Harding's phone rang, the shrill tone cutting through the silence of his dimly lit office. He glanced at the caller ID, an unfamiliar number. He almost ignored it, dismissing it as just another crank call or a well-meaning but misguided tip. But something made him answer. "Detective Harding," he said, his voice weary. "Detective, this is Dr. Evans, a child psychologist. I've just had a session with a young girl named Lily, and I believe she may have information that is relevant to the Mrs. Gable case." Harding's ears perked up. "Lily? The girl who drew the picture on the refrigerator?" "Yes, that's her," Dr. Evans replied. "Her parents brought her in because they were concerned about her recent drawings. She's been focusing on a man she saw near Mrs. Gable's bakery, a man with a distinct tattoo on his arm." Harding felt a jolt of adrenaline. "A tattoo? Can you describe it?" "It's a crude drawing, but it appears to be some kind of winged creature," Dr. Evans said. "A dragon, perhaps, or an animal with wings. Lily has drawn it several times, each time adding more detail." Harding leaned forward, his grip tightening on the phone. "This is significant, Doctor. I have a witness statement that mentions a man with a blurry tattoo on his arm. We thought it was a dead end, but Lily's drawing, it could be the key." Dr. Evans explained that she had proceeded cautiously, aware of the potential to influence Lily. She felt it was imperative to contact Harding, recognizing the potential for Lily's innocent perspective to break the case. Harding thanked Dr. Evans profusely, his mind racing. He had been ready to give up, convinced that he had hit a dead end. But now, thanks to a little girl and her crayons, the investigation was back on track. He arranged to meet with Dr. Evans and Lily's parents as soon as possible. He knew he had to tread carefully, to protect Lily from the harsh realities of the case. But he also knew that she held the key to finding Mrs. Gable, and bringing that mean man to justice. The meeting took place in Dr. Evans' office. Harding, still weary but with a glimmer of hope in his eyes, sat across from Lily and her parents. Dr. Evans sat beside Lily, offering quiet support and reassurance. Harding knew he had to be careful. He couldn't scare Lily or pressure her into saying something she didn't mean. He needed to gain her trust, to create a safe space where she felt comfortable sharing what she had seen. Dr. Evans took the lead, starting by asking Lily about her drawings, her favorite colors, and her friends at school. She gradually steered the conversation towards the drawing of the arm with the winged creature tattoo. "Lily," Dr. Evans said gently, "can you tell us about this drawing? Who is this man?" Lily hesitated, her eyes darting towards Harding. He offered her a warm smile, trying to convey that he was there to help, not to frighten her. "He's the mean man," Lily whispered, her voice barely audible. "The mean man?" Dr. Evans asked softly. "Where did you see him, Lily?" Harding held his breath, waiting for her answer. Dr. Evans guided the questioning, focusing on Lily's experience, her feelings, and her observations. She carefully avoided leading questions, allowing Lily to express herself in her own words. Harding listened intently, taking mental notes, piecing together the fragments of Lily's memory. He learned that Lily had seen the man near Mrs. Gable's bakery on the morning of her disappearance. She had been walking to school with her mom when she saw him standing near the back entrance, looking angry. He asked Lily about the tattoo, careful not to suggest any specific details. "What did the mark on his arm look like, Lily?" Lily thought for a moment, then said, it had wings, and claws, and it looked angry, like the man. Harding exchanged a glance with Dr. Evans. The details were vague, but they were consistent with what they already knew. And they were coming directly from Lily, from the innocent perspective of a child who had unknowingly witnessed something terrible. They were on the right track. The next step was to find the mean man, and bring him to justice. With Dr. Evans' gentle guidance, Lily continued to share her memories of that day. She described walking with her mom, holding her hand tightly as they approached Mrs. Gable's bakery. She remembered the smell of warm bread wafting through the air, a smell she usually loved. But on that day, the smell was overshadowed by a sense of unease. She pointed to a spot on a map of Willow Creek, marking the location of the back entrance to the bakery. He was standing there, she said, her voice barely a whisper. The mean man. He was looking at the door. Harding felt a chill run down his spine. Lily's description perfectly matched the layout of the bakery and the location of the back entrance, a detail that hadn't been widely publicized. Only someone familiar with the bakery, or someone who had been there that day, would know that. He asked Lily if she had seen Mrs. Gable. Lily shook her head. No, she said. Just the mean man. He looked angry. Dr. Evans asked Lily if she remembered anything else about the man. Lily thought for a moment, then said, he had a funny hat. A dark one. Harding made a note of the detail. A dark hat. It was another small piece of the puzzle, another clue that could help them identify the suspect. As the session drew to a close, Harding felt a surge of hope. They were getting closer, he could feel it. Lily's innocent perspective had provided them with crucial information, confirming the presence of a man with a winged creature tattoo near Mrs. Gable's bakery on the day of her disappearance. He thanked Lily and her parents for their help, promising to keep them informed. As he left Dr. Evans' office, he knew that the investigation was about to enter a new and crucial phase. They finally had a solid lead, a concrete suspect to pursue. The hunt for the mean man was about to begin in earnest. The pieces were falling into place. The truth was just within reach. Back at the station, Harding and Maria meticulously reviewed their suspect list, armed with Lily's description and the tattoo details. They cross-referenced their existing list with individuals known to wear hats, particularly dark-colored ones. They also prioritized individuals with a history of violent behavior or a connection to Mrs. Gable's bakery. The list began to shrink. They eliminated suspects who had alibis, those who didn't fit Lily's general description, and those who didn't have any known tattoos. The remaining names were individuals who had raised suspicion in the past, but for whom they had lacked concrete evidence. Harding felt a sense of cautious optimism. They were finally narrowing down the field, focusing on the most likely candidates. He instructed Maria to pull up the files on each remaining suspect, paying close attention to any details about their appearance, their past behavior, and their possible connection to Mrs. Gable. They found 3 individuals who fit the profile: a disgruntled former employee of the bakery, a local troublemaker with a history of petty theft, and a mysterious drifter who had been seen in town a few times in the weeks leading up to Mrs. Gable's disappearance. Harding studied their photos, his eyes scanning for any sign of a tattoo on their arms. 2 of the suspects had long-sleeved shirts in their photos, making it impossible to see their arms. The third suspect, the drifter, had a short-sleeved shirt, but his arms were turned away from the camera, obscuring any potential tattoos. Harding knew they couldn't rely on photos alone. They needed to see these suspects in person, to observe their behavior, and to get a closer look at their arms. He instructed Maria to locate the 3 suspects and bring them in for questioning. The hunt for the mean man was intensifying. The final act was about to begin. Of the 3 suspects, Frank stood out. Frank was a local handyman, known for his odd jobs and his quick temper. He had a history of petty crime, mostly related to theft and vandalism. He had also done some repair work at Mrs. Gable's bakery in the past, giving him familiarity with the building. But what truly caught Harding's attention was a detail in Frank's file, a mention of a tattoo. It wasn't a clear description, just a note from a previous arrest stating that Frank had some kind of weird tattoo on his left arm. The arresting officer hadn't been able to make out the design, describing it as a bunch of squiggly lines. Harding pulled up Frank's photo again, studying it intently. Frank was wearing a long-sleeved shirt, obscuring his arm. But Harding couldn't shake the feeling that Frank was their guy. The description of the weird tattoo, combined with his history of petty crime and his connection to the bakery, made him the prime suspect. He instructed Maria to prioritize Frank, to bring him in for questioning as soon as possible. He wanted to see Frank's arm, to confirm his suspicions. He wanted to know what Frank had been doing on the morning of Mrs. Gable's disappearance. Maria located Frank at a local bar, nursing a beer and looking sullen. She approached him cautiously, informing him that Detective Harding wanted to speak with him at the station. Frank grumbled but agreed to come along. As Maria escorted Frank to the patrol car, Harding waited anxiously at the station. He knew this was it. This was the moment of truth. He had a feeling that Frank was the mean man from Lily's drawing, the man with the winged creature tattoo, the man who had taken Mrs. Gable. He just needed to prove it. The weight of the case, the hopes of the town, rested on his shoulders. He was about to face the darkness, and he was determined to bring it to light. Harding sat across from Frank in the small, sterile interrogation room. Frank was a wiry man with a nervous energy that seemed to vibrate off him. He wore a dark baseball cap pulled low over his eyes and a long-sleeved flannel shirt, despite the warm weather. Harding started with routine questions, asking about Frank's background, his employment history, and his relationship with Mrs. Gable. Frank was evasive, offering short, clipped answers. He claimed he barely knew Mrs. Gable, that he had only done a few minor repairs at her bakery. Harding pressed him about his whereabouts on the morning of Mrs. Gable's disappearance. Frank claimed he had been at home, sleeping. He had no alibi, no witnesses to confirm his story. Then Harding steered the conversation towards the tattoo. "Frank," he said, his voice calm but firm, "I understand you have a tattoo on your arm." Frank shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "Yeah, so what?" he mumbled, avoiding Harding's gaze. "Can you describe it for me?" Harding asked. Frank hesitated, then said, "It's just some stupid thing I got when I was a kid. Doesn't mean anything." "What does it look like?" Harding pressed. Frank shrugged. "It's just some lines. I don't know. It's old, it's faded." As Frank spoke, Harding noticed something. Frank was nervously touching his left arm, running his hand over the fabric of his shirt, as if trying to conceal something. It was a subtle gesture, but Harding didn't miss it. "Frank," Harding said, leaning forward, "why are you so nervous about your tattoo? What are you hiding?" Frank's eyes darted around the room, his face pale. He denied any involvement in Mrs. Gable's disappearance, claiming he had nothing to do with it. But Harding knew he was lying. He could see it in Frank's eyes, in his body language, in the way he nervously touched his tattooed arm. Harding was closing in. He could feel it. The truth was about to be revealed. Based on Frank's evasive behavior and his nervous touching of his arm, Harding was convinced he had probable cause to search Frank's house. He quickly drafted an affidavit, outlining the evidence they had gathered, including Lily's drawing, Mr. Peterson's witness statement, and Frank's suspicious behavior during the interview. He presented the affidavit to a judge, who reviewed the evidence and agreed that there was sufficient reason to believe that evidence related to Mrs. Gable's disappearance might be found at Frank's residence. The judge signed the warrant, authorizing Harding and his team to search Frank's house. Harding, accompanied by Maria and several other officers, arrived at Frank's rundown house on the outskirts of town. They knocked on the door, announcing their presence and their intention to execute a search warrant. Frank, looking pale and defeated, opened the door. The search was methodical and thorough. They searched every room, every closet, every drawer. At first, they found nothing of significance. But then, in the back of Frank's closet, hidden under a pile of dirty laundry, they found a dark baseball cap that matched Lily's description. And then, in a shoebox under Frank's bed, they found it, a small, blood-stained rolling pin, identical to the one that was missing from Mrs. Gable's bakery. The bloodstains were later confirmed to be Mrs. Gable's. Harding felt a wave of relief wash over him. They had found it. They had found the evidence that linked Frank to the crime. Lily's drawing, the tattoo, the nervous behavior, it all added up. They finally had the proof they needed to arrest Frank for the disappearance of Mrs. Gable. The darkness was about to be exposed. Frank was arrested and taken back to the station. Initially, he maintained his innocence, denying any involvement in Mrs. Gable's disappearance. But Harding was relentless. He presented the evidence, piece by piece, Lily's drawing, Mr. Peterson's witness statement, the dark baseball cap, and the blood-stained rolling pin. He confronted Frank with the details that only the killer would know, the location of the back entrance to the bakery, the type of rolling pin used, the specific items that had been moved or disturbed. He pushed Frank, wearing him down, chipping away at his defenses. Finally, after hours of interrogation, Frank cracked. He confessed to everything. He admitted that he had gone to the bakery that morning to rob Mrs. Gable. He had been desperate for money, and he knew that Mrs. Gable kept a large amount of cash in her bakery. He described how he had confronted Mrs. Gable, how she had resisted, and how he had struck her with the rolling pin in a fit of rage. He revealed where he had hidden Mrs. Gable's body, a remote location in the woods outside of town. Details that only the killer would know. Harding listened intently, his face grim. He felt a mix of emotions, relief that they had finally solved the case, sadness for Mrs. Gable and her family, and anger at Frank for his senseless act of violence. With Frank's confession, the truth was finally out in the open. The darkness that had shrouded Willow Creek was finally lifted. Mrs. Gable could finally rest in peace, and the people of Willow Creek could begin to heal. Harding knew that this case would stay with him forever, a reminder of the power of observation, the importance of trusting his instincts, and the unexpected ways that justice can be served. And he knew, somewhere, Lily and her crayons were smiling. News of Frank's arrest and confession spread through Willow Creek like wildfire. A collective sigh of relief swept through the town, a release of the fear and anxiety that had gripped them for so long. Doors were unlocked, children played outside again, and neighbors greeted each other with smiles instead of suspicious glances. The town council organized a memorial service for Mrs. Gable, a celebration of her life and her contributions to the community. The bakery, which had remained closed since her disappearance, was reopened by her family, filled with the aroma of warm bread and sweet treats once again. Sheriff Miller publicly thanked Detective Harding for his tireless efforts, acknowledging that the case would never have been solved without his expertise and dedication. But Harding knew that the real hero of the story was Lily, the quiet, observant girl whose drawing had unlocked the truth. The people of Willow Creek were grateful for the closure that Frank's arrest had brought. They could finally begin to heal, to rebuild their community, and to move forward. The darkness had been defeated, and the light had returned. But Harding knew that the scars of this case would remain, a reminder of the fragility of life and the ever-present threat of evil. He hoped that the people of Willow Creek would never forget Mrs. Gable, and that they would always remember the power of observation and the importance of protecting their innocence. The quiet charm of Willow Creek was returning, but it was a charm tempered by the knowledge that even the smallest of towns could harbor the darkest of secrets. The town was safe once more. For now. A few days later, Harding visited Lily and her family. He wanted to personally thank her for her help, to acknowledge the importance of her unique perspective. He brought her a small gift, a brand new set of crayons, with every color imaginable. Lily was sitting at her little table by the window, drawing. Her drawings were brighter now, filled with sunshine yellow and ocean blue. The dark, swirling colors were gone, replaced by cheerful scenes of flowers and animals. Harding knelt down beside her, his voice gentle. "Lily," he said, "I wanted to thank you for your help. You were very brave, and you helped us find the man who hurt Mrs. Gable." Lily looked up at him, her eyes wide. "The mean man?" she asked softly. Harding nodded. "Yes, the mean man. He's not going to hurt anyone anymore." Lily smiled, a small, shy smile. "Good," she said. Harding handed her the box of crayons. "These are for you," he said. "You have a very special talent, Lily. You see things that other people don't see. Never stop drawing, never stop sharing your heart with the world." Lily took the crayons, her fingers tracing the colorful box. "Thank you," she whispered. Harding stood up, his heart filled with a sense of peace. He had solved the case, brought justice to Mrs. Gable, and helped to heal a wounded community. But more importantly, he had recognized the value of a child's perspective, the power of innocence, and the unexpected ways that truth can be revealed. He knew that Lily would continue to draw, to observe, to share her unique vision with the world. And he knew that, in her own quiet way, she would continue to make the world a brighter, more beautiful place. He left Lily's house with a lighter heart, knowing he had made a difference. Lily's drawings bloomed with new life. The mean man was gone, banished from her imagination, replaced by friendly animals, soaring birds, and vibrant landscapes. The dark, swirling colors were a distant memory, replaced by the bright, cheerful hues of her new crayons. She drew Mrs. Gable's bakery, filled with smiling customers and delicious treats. She drew her mom and dad, holding hands and laughing. She drew Mr. Whiskers, chasing butterflies in the sunshine. She continued to see Dr. Evans for a while, just to make sure that she was okay. Dr. Evans helped her process her feelings, to understand that she had done nothing wrong, that she had been brave and helpful. Lily's parents were relieved to see her return to her old self, her innocence restored. They encouraged her to continue drawing, to express herself through her art, to share her unique vision with the world. Lily never forgot Mrs. Gable, or the mean man she had seen that day. But she refused to let the darkness define her. She chose to focus on the light, on the beauty, on the goodness that still existed in the world. She learned that even the smallest of voices can make a difference, that even the most innocent of eyes can see the truth. And she learned that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope, there is always beauty, there is always the power of art to heal and to inspire. Lily's world was bright again, filled with love, laughter, and crayons. Her innocence, though touched by darkness, was stronger than ever. She was free. The case of Mrs. Gable's disappearance serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of observation, of paying attention to the details that often go unnoticed. It highlights the unexpected ways that justice can be served, the remarkable ability of a child to see what adults cannot, and the unwavering dedication of those who seek to protect the innocent. It's a story about a small town shaken by darkness, but ultimately restored by the light. A testament to the resilience of the human spirit, the power of community, and the enduring strength of hope. Sometimes, the answers we seek are hidden in plain sight, waiting to be discovered by those who are willing to look closely, to listen carefully, and to trust their instincts. Sometimes, the most valuable clues come from the most unlikely of sources, from the innocent eyes of a child who sees the world with a unique clarity. Lily's drawings, once dismissed as random scribbles, became a beacon of truth, guiding Detective Harding and the people of Willow Creek towards justice. And in the end, it was not just a detective's skill or a town's determination that solved the case, but the simple act of a child sharing her vision with the world. It leaves us with a sense of wonder, a renewed appreciation for the power of art, the beauty of innocence, and the enduring hope that even in the darkest of times, light can always be found. The world keeps turning, and justice, though sometimes delayed, can prevail in the most unexpected of ways. May we all learn to look a little closer, listen a little more intently, and never underestimate the power of a child's heart. The end.